My phone rang while I was grabbing a coffee between meetings. It was my bank's branch manager, and her voice was dead serious. Ms. Vance, a $450,000 cash-out refinance on your home closed yesterday. We're about to wire the funds. My stomach completely dropped. What refinance? I never signed anything. The line went silent for 3 tense seconds before she replied. Your parents were here with power of attorney documents. They claimed you authorized it. I rushed straight to the branch, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. When the manager pulled up the notarized contract, my heart stopped. Printed right on the signature line was my name, written in ink I had never touched. That's a forgery, I whispered. She leaned in, her eyes wide with shock, and immediately picked up her phone. I'm freezing the accounts right now. But what we uncovered next inside my house changed everything. My name is Claire, I'm 27 years old, and until 6 months ago, I thought my family was normal. I worked 2 jobs for 5 years, saving every penny to buy a modest 3-bedroom house in the suburbs. It was my pride and joy, a physical proof of my independence. But that feeling of security vanished in a single afternoon. I was sitting at my office desk, reviewing emails, when my phone buzzed on the blotter. The caller ID read First Horizon Bank. I answered, expecting a routine question about my account, but the branch manager, Ms. Vance, skipped the pleasantries entirely. Her voice was tight, almost breathless. Claire, I need you to come to the main branch right now, she said. We're reviewing a cash-out refinance on your property, and something isn't adding up.
My heart did a slow flip in my chest.
A refinance? I haven't applied for any loan. When I arrived at her office 20 minutes later, Ms. Vance closed the door and slid a thick manila folder across her desk. The air in the room felt heavy, suffocating. Sitting across from her, watching her hands tremble slightly as she turned the pages, a cold knot formed in my stomach. She pointed to a notary seal stamped over a transfer deed. Your parents brought this in yesterday, she whispered. They claimed you authorized them to manage the payout. Before I tell you what was in that file, let me know in the comments. Where are you watching from today? I'd love to see how far my story reaches. To the outside world, my parents, David and Eleanor, were the absolute picture of a loving, supportive suburban couple. If you met them at a neighborhood barbecue or saw their posts online, you'd think they were devoted parents who sacrificed everything for their daughter. But behind closed doors, that polished image was a carefully crafted illusion. For as long as I can remember, my parents lived far beyond their means. They drove brand new cars they couldn't afford, wore designer clothes, and went on lavish vacations, all financed by a mountain of credit card debt. They viewed money not as something earned through hard work, but as something they were inherently owed. And as I grew older and became financially successful, that toxic sense of entitlement shifted directly onto me. They constantly dropped subtle hints about how much they had spent raising me, quietly instilling the idea that my accomplishments weren't really mine. They were a return on their investment. When I bought my home, instead of being proud, my father made offhand remarks about how it must be nice to have so much extra cash. The real trap was set 2 weeks before that frantic call from the bank. My mother volunteered to house sit while I was away on a short weekend work trip. She framed it as a sweet, motherly gesture, offering to water my plants and collect the mail. I was naive enough to thank her. Instead of watering plants, she was sifting through my filing cabinets, copying my personal identification, and intercepting my financial statements to pull off their plan. I left the bank with my stomach churning, the manager's promise to freeze the wire transfer echoing in my mind. I drove straight to my house, my hands gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw my father's pristine silver sedan parked right out front. They were inside. I unlocked the front door and stepped into the entryway. The house was quiet, save for the low murmur of voices coming from the living room. I walked in to find my mother and father sitting on my plush velvet sofa, comfortably sipping coffee. Spread across the coffee table in front of them were glossy real estate brochures and travel magazines. Claire, my mother chirped, offering a bright, synthetic smile. We didn't expect you home so early, sweetheart. I just came from First Horizon Bank, I said, my voice dropping an octave, dead serious. Ms. Vance showed me the cash-out refinance documents. She showed me my forged signature on a $450,000 loan. The air in the room instantly turned icy. My mother's smile faltered, but my father didn't even flinch. He slowly set his coffee cup down on the glass table and leaned back, adjusting his collar. "We were going to explain it to you this weekend, Claire," he said, his tone infuriatingly calm, like a teacher explaining a simple lesson to a child. "We built up that equity for the family. We raised you, paid for your college, and sacrificed our best years for you. That money is family equity. You don't need all that house to yourself anyway." Family equity. I gasped, incredulous. "You committed grand fraud. You stole my identity." My mother stood up, her face twisting into a scowl of pure defensive fury. "Don't you dare speak to your father like that. You are being selfish and ungrateful. After everything we gave you, you're throwing a tantrum over paperwork." Standing in my own living room, looking at the two people who were supposed to protect me, I realized they didn't feel a shred of remorse. They truly believed my life, my hard work, and my home belonged to them. After a heated shouting match, my parents stormed out of the house, slamming the heavy front door behind them. The echo vibrated through the silent hallway, leaving me standing alone in the middle of my living room, my chest heaving and tears hot against my cheeks. But the knot in my stomach told me that the frozen loan was only the tip of an iceberg. I headed straight toward the back of the house to inspect my home office and the adjacent guest room, the room my mother had occupied during her supposed house-sitting stay. I opened the guest room closet door, expecting to find empty coat hangers. Instead, tucked far into the top corner behind a stack of extra blankets, my hand brushed against a thick vinyl folder. I pulled it down and brought it to my desk, my fingers trembling as I unzipped it. What lay inside made my blood run cold. It wasn't just loan paperwork. Tucked into clear plastic sleeves was a counterfeit notary stamp bearing the name of an out-of-state official, along with multiple sheets of paper featuring my forged signature, practiced over and over in blue ink. Beneath those were pre-signed blank deed transfer forms and formal listing agreements with a local real estate agent. They hadn't just tried to pocket $450,000 from a refinance. The documents revealed their complete timeline. While I was scheduled to be away on a 2-week international business trip the following month, they planned to put my home on the market, sell it out from under me, and liquidate every cent of my hard-earned equity. They were preparing to leave me completely homeless. With the evidence spread across my desk, I knew I couldn't afford to be weak. I called Ms. Vance back, who immediately put me in touch with the bank's senior fraud investigator and local law enforcement. Within 2 hours, a detective was sitting in my office, carefully sealing the fake notary stamp, practice signature sheets, and unauthorized listing agreements into evidence bags. The paper trail was undeniable. The fraud unit quickly traced the illegal notary seal back to an online service my father had fraudulently accessed using a stolen credit card. The trap was closing, and my parents were running out of room to maneuver. When the bank officially notified them that the $450,000 wire transfer was permanently canceled due to an ongoing criminal fraud investigation, panic set in. My phone began blowing up with frantic texts and voicemails. First came the explosive, angry demands, accusing me of ruining the family's reputation over a simple misunderstanding. When those failed to work, the tactics shifted to emotional manipulation. My mother sent long, tearful voice notes, claiming her health was deteriorating from the stress and begging me to call off the police. They even contacted my aunts, uncles, and grandparents, spinning a distorted story that I was trying to throw my own parents in prison over a minor financial disagreement. Extended family members started calling me, pressuring me to drop the charges for the sake of peace. But every time my resolve wobbled, I looked at those forged listing agreements and remembered that they were ready to leave me with nothing. 3 weeks later, we gathered in a stark, glass-walled conference room at the fraud investigator's office for the official legal confrontation. My parents sat across from me, flanked by a court-appointed legal representative. Gone was my father's arrogant composure and my mother's loud indignation. In their place were 2 visibly terrified people who finally realized that their actions carried real, legal consequences. The forensic document examiner presented a comprehensive report detailing the forged signatures, the illegal notary stamp, and the paper trail linking the fraudulent loan application directly to my father's IP address. The evidence was absolute and unassailable. Faced with overwhelming proof and the threat of multiple felony charges, including grand larceny, identity theft, and forgery, their attorney advised them that fighting the case in court would guarantee prison time. My parents had no choice but to sign a legally binding consent decree. Under the terms of the agreement, the forged deed transfer was formally voided, completely restoring full, unencumbered title ownership of the house back to my name. Additionally, they were ordered to pay full restitution for all my legal fees and investigation costs, backed by a strict court-monitored payment plan. To avoid immediate sentencing, they were placed on formal probation, leaving them with permanent criminal records. As the papers were stamped and signed, my mother looked at me through tear-filled eyes, silently pleading for forgiveness. But I couldn't give it to her. I packed my documents, looked my parents in the eyes one last time, and walked out, officially cutting all ties to protect my future and my peace of mind. Leaving that courthouse with the signed papers in my hand, I felt an overwhelming sense of relief mixed with a quiet, heavy grief. I had saved my home, protected my financial future, and proven that I wouldn't let anyone step on me. But I had also lost the family I thought I knew. It took months of quiet evenings in my living room to fully process everything that happened. I learned a hard lesson that many people spend a lifetime trying to avoid. Blood ties do not give anyone a license to destroy your life, betray your trust, or steal your peace of mind. Setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's essential for survival. Today, my home is truly my sanctuary. The mortgage is in my name, the locks are changed, and the security system is updated. But more than that, I've built a life defined by my own strength and independence, surrounding myself with people who respect and value me for who I am, not for what they can get from me. If you ever find yourself facing betrayal from the people who are supposed to protect you, remember that standing up for yourself is never a mistake. Now, I'm curious to hear from you. If your own family attempted something like this, would you pursue full legal charges to protect yourself, or would you try to walk away without involving the law? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories.